This video is going to be a little bit different than my usual tutorial style ones because I want to discuss something that I commonly see stated online. Force-free dog trainers are closed-minded. This is something that I personally have been accused of a few times now, and I also frequently see in the comment section on other force-free trainers platforms. So the question that I want to talk about is it closed-minded to be selective about the sources that you learn from and to choose not to include correction-based trainers on that list? First, I do want to say that I think it's incredibly important that we do keep learning. I'm constantly reading books, taking professional courses, and sometimes watching free content from other force-free trainers or behavioral experts. If you think that you already know everything or that there's nothing left to learn, I think there's bigger problems than what I'm going to discuss in this video. I think we all still have things that we can learn and skills that we need to develop and strengthen, myself included. If I haven't changed something about my dog training practices in a year, I would consider that a massive personal red flag. So I'm not going to discuss whether it's important to keep learning, but instead I just want to focus on whether we actually need to consider all sources of information when we are learning. I want to share 2 reasons why I don't think that me choosing not to get my information from compulsion or correction-based trainers makes me closed-minded. First, we have a professional duty to be using modern practices. Some may consider this an extreme example, but I think it's quite fitting. If I was a child psychologist, would you consider me closed-minded to not take professional advice from another psychologist that states that children need force, fear, or intimidation in order to change? I'm hoping the answer to that was an easy no. In the field of psychology, you would be discredited if you suggested smacking a kid as a proper way of changing their behavior. Other psychologists would not be taking your advice seriously because it's no longer credible or valuable. So my question to you is, why does that change at all when we're talking about a dog? Psychology is a tightly regulated field, but dog training is not. I think it would surprise a lot of people to know that you can call yourself a professional dog trainer even if you have 0 certifications or qualifications. Dog training is basically the Wild West. However, I think that anybody that calls themselves a professional in any industry has a duty to use modern, up-to-date methods. Unfortunately, we do not have strict regulatory practices yet, but we are charging for advice that affects a living, breathing, feeling creature. I think at a minimum, we need to regulate ourselves, and that includes our actions, our methods, and our sources of information. Just like psychology no longer accepts physical corrections or intimidation being used on a child, animal behavior organizations also do not condone compulsion training with dogs. We have a professional duty to use modern methods, and that includes learning from others that are doing the same. The second reason I don't believe it's closed-minded to be selective about information sources is that force-free wasn't actually something I always believed in. This is a more personal example, but I actually wouldn't be a force-free dog trainer if I wasn't open-minded. I briefly touched on this in my Why Doesn't Force-Free Training Work video, but I grew up in a household that was very pro-compulsion. One of my parents was a dog trainer, and it was heavily drilled into me that difficult dogs need corrections. For many years, I genuinely believed that corrections were the only way to get behavior change, and that using them actually helped the dog. If I was closed-minded, I would still believe that. Instead, as an adult, I realized that that is complete. Once I actually took professional courses, understood learning theory, understood how to read canine body language, and understood the importance of threshold, my entire training practice changed. Once you can actually see the stress and fear that compulsion causes dogs, you can't unsee it, and you typically don't want to watch others continue to cause it. Luckily, harsh methods actually aren't required to change a dog's behavior, and in fact, they're less effective. I've admitted on my social platforms many times that I am somebody that cares about results. If force-free genuinely didn't work, I wouldn't be an advocate for it. Part of the reason that I started this channel in the first place, and why I film my videos with dogs that are actually learning with force-free methods, is that I want to be able to show incredible transformations using kind methods. Reactivity and aggression are the main behaviors that I work with in my business, and I've had some clients kindly allow me to film some of that training. I've shown a few of my reactivity clients already, and in the new year, I'm going to show more reactivity as well as aggression work. I was indoctrinated in the compulsion world. If I was closed-minded, I would still be stuck there using outdated methods that dogs don't deserve. Allowing myself to be open to new ideas is what actually led me to force-free, even when changing my beliefs came with a heavy cost to my family life. I don't view choosing to focus my learning from other trainers or behaviorists that are also using modern, humane practices as being closed-minded. Instead, I personally would consider it a step backwards in my learning if I was to listen to somebody that was giving compulsion advice. Everyone is entitled to their opinions, so I would love to hear yours in the comments. Do you think that we need to include all sources to avoid being closed-minded, or do you think some sources aren't worth learning from? If you've tried force-free training in the past and it didn't work for you, I suggest watching this video next. It covers my own transition to force-free training and the things that I needed to learn for it to actually work.